If you want to hit consistently good and clean chip shots around the green, there's a couple of fundamentals that you need to get right. But the good news is it's not as hard as you might think. And with these fundamentals that I'm going to teach you here, your chipping consistency around the green should get much, much better. So what I oftentimes see is people set up to the ball with a stance width that is much too wide and a club that is leaning too much towards the target. And there's a couple of issues here. Firstly, if my stance is too wide, it gets me moving my weight back and forward in my legs too much, which is going to move my ground contact around too much and make it hard to consistently hit the ground in the same place every time. What I'd much rather see is a stance width that is very narrow, and what's really important with this is that I start and finish with a little bit of pressure on my lead leg. So you can see as I make my practice swings here, even though I'm moving the club to the top of the backswing, I'm not moving the pressure off my front leg. And by doing this, I've got much, much better control of my low point, and I should start to strike the ground in a consistently similar place every time. And with the club shaft, the danger of leaning the club shaft too much in like this is it really exposes the leading edge of the club. And this is the sharper edge on the bottom of your wedge. And what we'll find here is two things. If we are to get it wrong and hit the ground early, the club is likely to dig into the ground and stop because we're using the sharper edge here. If I don't hit the ground at all, it's really easy to hit the bottom groove of the club, and that's the one that sort of shoots over the back of the green and is really hard to control distance-wise. What I'd rather see instead is a setup with minimal shaft lean. So there's going to be a tiny bit of sort of handle lean here. But what this does is it makes it much easier to hit the ground with the trailing edge of the club, and the trailing edge is much, much more forgiving. And you can see in these practice swings I make, by using the trailing edge, the club doesn't dig into the ground. Even if I make really sort of steep contact with the ground, the club's never likely to dig in, and it's going to be much more forgiving if I was to get my ground contact wrong, which is going to happen quite often realistically on the course. So two setup fundamentals are feet really close together, weight starts and remains about 70% on my front leg, and setting up with minimal shaft lean. Once you're set up correctly, it's important to control the length of your swing. And what I oftentimes see here is people have a backswing that is much, much too long and a through swing that is much too short. And the danger of this is the fastest point of the swing is happening back here somewhere. And actually by the time the club reaches the ball, it's slowing down a little bit. If the club's slowing down and we're decelling into the ball, it's going to be much less forgiving if we were to get it wrong. What I would encourage you to do, and I'd encourage this for all of your short game, is actually to have a backswing that is the same length as your through swing. That might look like this for a short chip, and it might look like this for a slightly longer chip, but I'm making sure however far my club goes back, it's going to go exactly the same distance on the way through. And by doing this, I'm actually accelerating through the shot a little bit more. It helps me commit to my shot, and it just gives me that little bit more forgiveness if I was to get the ground contact wrong. So remember, if the club is slowing down as it hits the ball, it's not going to be very, very forgiving if I get it wrong. If my club is actually accelerating with a through swing that's the same length as my backswing, the ground contact's much more forgiving, meaning my miss hits will still be a little bit better. So in summary, if you want to hit consistently good chip shots, what we've got to do is make sure our stance width is really nice and narrow. I've got weight that starts and remains on my front foot, and I have minimal shaft lean of the club. And if I do that, I should start to make much, much better contact, and I should be getting consistent high spinny chip shots.